we want to do is start a conversation really about Luminate so that we can all kind of learn from each other. We've been trying to learn as much as we can. I've been in Luminate, I feel like, just constantly for the last couple of weeks, but it's like drinking from a fire hose, and it's really hard to kind of make sure that what you're looking at is the same thing as everyone else. So that's kind of what we would like to do, is to help kind of all of you guys learn from each other in a supplier community kind of way about this kind of tough transition from DSS to Luminate that everyone's going to be having to make here in the next little bit. But yeah, so that's the conversation. We'll be covering a little bit about DSS recipes and how to kind of convert those, but basically it's gone now. If you're still depending on DSS, you got to stop. But yeah, so this is us.
Cold, dead hands, Peter.
Sorry.
You'll pry it from my cold dead hands.
Yeah. Over my dead body. This is us. I'm on the supplier wiki team, so I do a lot of the research and writing for the subjects that we like to cover. Anything that's relevant to being a supplier in Walmart or anywhere else. Excuse me. That is my job. And Stacy's position is pretty similar. Retail Insights is more of a kind of like a research-driven and experience-driven version of kind of the same thing. And they graciously support us in a lot of different ways by bringing some of that real-world retail experience into our stuff. So every now and then we have some of them talk with us. Sean or Jessica, you've maybe seen on a webinar before too, are wonderful Retail Insights managers. So Stacy's kind of heading up that team, and her background is in more Walmart. So that's why we have her on today. So we're going to talk a little bit about DSS at the beginning, as I already mentioned, before diving into Luminate. The main thing here, or at least what we would like to do, is we'd like to start the conversation of what are the DSS templates that will be kind of most relevant to this new way of reporting in Luminate, or these new reports that, what's the language barrier in translating DSS to Luminate. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and an update on the timeline and all that. And then we're gonna talk about Luminate Basic and Charter, just kind of what Walmart has publicly said is the difference. And we'll talk a little bit about what kind of factors should go into that decision-making process. Excuse me. Of course, without telling you guys how to run your own business. Then we'll be doing tips and strategies, which is basically, we'll go over the scorecard. How do you pull the scorecard and Luminate, and maybe some other reports too, in the basic form of Luminate. And then we'll do our Q&A, which we expect a lot of questions for this one, just because, yeah, a lot of people have a lot of questions. So we may not be able to answer everything, but we will be able to do our best to answer everything. And if we can't, as always, we would love to take your difficult questions and send them around the company to try to find an answer for you. So we'll be doing that towards the end. And then Stacy will guide us through a little product preview of Walmart, which is not a one-for-one relationship with Luminate. We don't pull reports, and we're not data, or our product is not directly involved with this conversation. We're more in the revenue loss space. So it is, of course, everything's connected, but it's not directly related to that. So, but of course, if you're curious about that, if you'd like to stick around for that, we would be more than happy to have you. All right. So oftentimes we get this question: will you be getting a copy of the slide deck? Yes, you will. We'll be sending that out in about 3 to 4 business days. We also send out these recordings. So we record all of these and we send them out. We have a YouTube channel. we have all of our slide decks on supplierwiki.supplypike.com that you can download. So whatever it is you're looking for, just send me an email once you see my email at the end of it, and I can point you in the right direction for that if you can't find it yourself right away. So that's a question we get pretty often. I think we've got one already. So yes, you will be receiving a recorded version of this webinar, and it'll be on YouTube. So you could also just search YouTube for DSS and Luminate, and we'll probably be one of the first ones showing up there. Another question that we get a lot is how to ask a question. So you've already seen the chat. I hope that the chat is really active today. You can ask a question in the chat. It's just if it's not set to the hosts and panelists feature, then it's something that everyone will see. So if you have a question for everyone, which for this webinar is probably a good idea because we're all kind of learning, then that's a great place for that. The Q&A is for your more formal questions for us. So whatever those might be. So that's the difference between those two functions. And yeah. And we've got a little bit here about SupplyPike. Again, we used to have a product that was more kind of about storing data and giving the kinds of insights that people would get through DSS or something like a Luminate or a Luminate charter. But we've moved into the revenue loss space, basically. We're more of an accounting tool to help people recover fines lost to invalid deductions. But we've also been moving a little bit into the compliance space to try to help people become best-in-class suppliers that way too. So, but we're basically in all the categories. We've got about 500 customers now that we're really proud of working with. And we love to talk about revenue loss. So stick around. If you feel like that's something that might be relevant for your Walmart business, then stick around for that at the end. All right, take it away, Stacy.
Thank you, Peter. I get to take on the torch and talk about something that is near and dear to my heart. I'm sure many of you guys who have done this for a while, you have everyone here has a love-hate relationship with DSS, I think. And so kind of, sad, but excited to talk about what it means in the new world where we are saying goodbye to decision support. As Peter mentioned, this is a brand new topic for a lot of us. So please feel free to contribute in the chat if you guys have experiences and insights that you can share as you're using Luminate. Again, as Peter mentioned, we're doing a lot of research on our side, but obviously, the more we can share as a community, the more we'll all learn together. So today's webinar is going to be a little bit of a combination of kind of updates to what we're seeing on the, Luminate side, as well as how you can make the most out of DSS before it officially sunsets. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off. As Peter mentioned, if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop that in the chat or the Q&A session, and we will definitely be able to get to those questions for you. So for those of you guys who have been living under a rock and maybe have not seen the announcements yet, DSS is officially going to be sunset. So Walmart announced Luminate last year. There were a lot of kind of rumors on, could Luminate and DSS coexist? And they basically officially made the announcement that DSS is going away. I'm sure, again, if you guys have done this for a while, you're all familiar with the shifting timelines. First, it was supposed to be the end of last year, then it was going to be Q1 of this year, I think March 31st. And now the most recent announcement, and this one feels final, Q2 2024 is when DSS should officially be going away. So what they've announced is basically it's going to be sunset for everybody next quarter, but they're going to give everyone kind of a 30-day heads up, basically. So if you have not gotten that email yet, it's, you should be okay. But once you get that email, basically your clock starts for 30 days before they will officially take DSS access away from your retailing account. So with that, they are going to be replacing DSS with something called Luminate. We get a lot of questions all the time. Is Retail Link going away? Is Luminate going to be Retail Link 2.0, et cetera? And the answer to that is Luminate is just going to be another application within the Retail Link ecosystem. Now, there are a lot of other different applications that have been announced and are continuing to be released, Supplier One and things like that, which, we have ideas on what we think is going to happen. But for right now, and for today's webinar, we're only focusing on Luminate. And again, it is only going to be replacing DSS. So suppliers are going to have two options, and we're going to cover kind of the differences between the two from what we have seen so far. And basically, it's a required unpaid service. So it's kind of a one-to-one swap for DSS to Luminate Basic. So this is completely free, but there are a lot of limitations around data, which we'll cover in a second. And then there's also going to be an optional paid service called Luminate Charter. And so for this one, if you guys have done business with Sam's Club, it's kind of a similar concept to what they did with Madrid. Thankfully, there is still a free option on the Walmart side with Basic, but essentially everyone is trying to move suppliers towards Luminate Charter. And again, we'll show you guys the different data aspects that they have there. So we did put a question for the chat, as Peter kind of mentioned. We want today's webinar to be a little bit more conversational. Just curious if any of you guys in the chat have started using Luminate. If so, please feel free to share that. And obviously not, anything sensitive, but just how is it going so far? How does it compare to DSS? It's been pretty interesting. We have heard from our suppliers a mixed bag of reviews. Some people love it. They're like Luminate all the way. Some people are very sad that DSS is going away. So just curious to see how it's going for you guys. And obviously, if there's anything interesting, Peter will kind of call that out to the rest of us. So, that's cool that DSS is going away. Luminate is coming, but what is Luminate? So according to Walmart, this is on their marketing website, Luminate is a suite of analytic tools that deliver actionable customer-centric insights to drive better business decisions at Walmart. Essentially, they are labeling it and kind of positioning it as like a better and faster DSS. Essentially, what they are saying is that Luminate is going to be helpful they're going to unlock kind of a wider set of data than what DSS had. And the hope is that it's going to be helpful for new product launches, line extensions, package redesign, seasonal promos, and distribution and modular changes around pickup and delivery. So e-com is a really, really big part of Luminate. That was not a big focus for DSS. Again, I keep aging myself with this. But, anyone that's used DSS for a while, that the e-com reporting was a little bit of a mess. And Luminate is supposed to be, again, kind of that newer, faster version that gives better data. So one reason why we're still talking about DSS, obviously, as we mentioned in the previous slide, it's still going, it will be sunset in a couple of months. But why we still wanted to talk about it is because what we have found from a lot of our supplier partners is they are utilizing DSS to basically pull as much data as possible out of it before it officially sunsets. So one thing that I'll call out to you guys, and we mentioned here, DSS is, being used to compare against Luminate data. And we are finding, and I think maybe, again, share if this is true for you guys as well, but there are some discrepancies between what DSS is pulling and what Luminate is pulling. The general consensus seems to be that DSS is still more accurate than Luminate in general. Again, there's, your mileage may vary with Walmart, but kind of, again, the messaging that we have heard, that we have seen from Walmart is Luminate, again, is kind of the new standard going forward. So even if DSS feels more correct, buyers are being trained to refer to look at, and to utilize Luminate as kind of the right number. So again, why we wanted to call that out. Now, I think over time, Luminate is new and there's a lot of people going, joining. I think over time, Luminate will continue to get more accurate. And, as they figure out bugs and things like that, they'll fix that. But again, I think it's really, I would say probably a best practice to pull out as much as you can out of DSS so that you have a frame of reference. So if you're going into a Walmart buyer meeting with Luminate data and you don't feel it's accurate, you have nothing to compare that against. And so at least having DSS, again, Walmart is going to lean towards Illuminate data, but you can hopefully triangulate like what the truth is utilizing DSS information. So we're going to talk through, how to pull reporting at a very high level out of DSS. We're focusing a little bit more on the Luminate side just because that's where everyone is headed. But as Peter mentioned, we have a YouTube channel. We have a lot of webinars around actually pulling like more detailed data out of DSS. So feel free to reference those. Today, we're just at a really, really high level, wanting to plant the seed of thought in case you guys aren't using it as a reference check today. Maybe start doing that before you lose access to it in the next quarter. So really quickly, again, we're going to just chat about it on a high level. If you guys are familiar with DSS, you probably know the homepage and what that looks like. So I think the key thing here is just understanding, like I would be pulling data out of your sales and margin folders, your scorecard folders, and even Walmart.com folders, just because that is going to, have the most granular type information for you. So again, I'm going to breeze through the DSS side a little bit, just because again, if you guys have used DSS before, you should know how to utilize these templates. But of course, you want to make sure that you are forming the specific business question. So in this case, it's what type of data do you need before you lose access to DSS? Choosing the correct template. Again, we have a lot of previous webinars that you can utilize to give you a guide there, and then completing the report template. So actually filling out all of the tabs across the top to make sure that you're getting all of the information that you need out of DSS. So yeah, I will kind of leave it there. One thing I wanted to call out is a lot of teams are utilizing company summary report, just because you're able to get item level performance metrics, again, just as a reference point before you guys lose access to this in DSS. So as Peter mentioned, you guys are going to get all of the slides as well as a recording of today's webinar. So I'm not going to go through kind of what every column is and what every column means, but you'll have access to this. And if you ever need help building a DSS report, again, feel free to refer to our webinars, or you can reach out to us and we'll be happy to help you guys there, getting that information out ASAP. Were there any questions, Peter, for that particular?
Not so much questions, but I did want to take some time just to kind of cover some of the responses to our question.
Great.
So a little bit of a mixed bag. A lot of people expressing a lot of frustration with Luminate, especially Luminate Basic. But there's a little bit of a mixed bag. Olive said that she's finding it pretty user-friendly so far. Some people have been mentioning how it feels slower than DSS, which is something that I've experienced a little bit in my kind of poking around in Luminate. It feels like it's not completely built out yet. And I think that that's a little bit of the reason behind pushing back the end date for DSS, is just that they want to make sure that everything's running at 100%. But if some of you have been through the Luminate training, they mention that in the Luminate basic training as well, where they're like, yeah, not everything is available yet. So another kind of just head scratcher, why they would be pushing this before it's done.
No, I know. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the Walmart supplier support group. And if you're not, I highly recommend joining it. It's on Facebook. And it's just crazy. Again, I'm sure all of us have done that, the dreaded and beloved Monday morning report. And I'm seeing people that are like scheduling reports in Luminate to run like Sunday nights and, hey, get it done Monday morning so I can put it into my Monday morning report. And they're not done till like 10 p.m. on Monday, which is a little scary. So I'm also curious if you guys have any insights, just like how are buyers receiving? Like, do they understand like, hey, everyone's getting used to Luminate? Are they accepting that your Monday morning report may be a Tuesday morning report? We're very familiar, obviously, on the supplier side, but just curious if you guys have any insights to share on the buyer side. But yeah, feel free. I'm glad people are throwing some answers in the chat. So cool. So just, in the spirit of time, wanted to share with you guys an overview of Luminate Basic and Charter. So there are 2 slides here. Again, you guys will have access to this, and this is also available on the Luminate website. So if you guys want to see that, you can take a look, but we just wanted to call out a couple of things for you in case you guys have not seen this table before. So this is from Walmart. They're showing you basically the different types of data that you know is going to be available or was available with DSS, won't be available anymore. And so yeah, again, just a couple of things I wanted to call out. So as I mentioned before, Luminate is really trying to kind of make e-com a big deal for them. So again, you guys know with DSS, e-com like .com, pick up today, ship to store, all that was not great. It was available, but not great. You know, it's going to be available in Luminate Basic. You're going to have an aggregated view of store and e-com sales with no breakout available. And if you want to get a channel breakdown, so that's going to include like your pickup, delivery, ship to store, ship from home, all that, or ship to home, all that type of stuff, pick up today, you're going to have to pay for that, which is a little bit crazy, but wanted to call that out for you guys. Another thing that we again have heard like, oh, is Luminate going to replace OTIF? Is it going to replace SQEP and all that good stuff? So for OTIF, if you guys are kind of in charge of the compliance side, you know that there's the OTIF scorecard. So for Luminate Basic, they are still recommending that you guys utilize the OTIF scorecard. So if you're not going to pay, that's where you're going to get the OTIF data. But obviously, if you pay for it, they're going to include the OTIF information in Luminate Charter. This I thought was a little crazy in that PO information. So PO level information, obviously available in DSS today. They're taking that away in Luminate Basic and encouraging suppliers to utilize the Nova application. We have a lot of webinars around Nova, so won't spend too much time there. But if you're using it today, that is where they recommend you get your PO information moving forward. I would say Nova is a decent application, but obviously, as you all know, the ability to kind of combine multiple data sets is so important to what we do. So the fact that you have to go to like different applications and stitch it all together when you used to have all this available to you is a little crazy, but that is kind of the reality of it. They are going to include PO information on the charter side. So again, if you pay for it, you will have that type of information. One thing that I wanted to call out that I think is pretty good is, so they are going to provide 3 years of historical information on the paid side. So you will still get the 104 weeks in your basic, but obviously if you pay, you're going to get that additional history. For some folks, that is really powerful. For others, kind of 2 years is sufficient. So I would say, as with all things, anytime you're making a decision on whether you want to make an investment or not, it's really understanding like how much pain are you willing to take on if you are not paying for Luminate, as an example. So other kind of new things that are going to be available in paid but not basic. So OPD, we talked about the channel breakdown. SQEP is still going to be available through the SQEP dashboard, very similar to OTIF scorecard, but it will be included in Charter. And then digital availability will be included in the paid version as well. Other quick call outs there. So you're still going to be able to do ad hoc reports. You're still going to be able to schedule reports. But I thought this was kind of interesting is for basic, you can only schedule reports if you want to run reports on demand, which you were able to do in DSS. You have to pay for that now. So yeah, as I think Peter said it right, a lot of scratcher decisions. That we just wanted to make sure that you guys had kind of 2 eyes open as you go into making a decision around Luminate. A couple of other things: preview data before report creation. To me, that's kind of it's a nice to have. I wouldn't say it's anything that we absolutely have unless your business is run a little bit differently. Report sharing. They took that away in Luminate Basic. So if you guys are familiar with DSS, you used to be able to build a template and then you could share it with other users within your organization. That does not exist in the free version. You now have to pay for that. Email notification on report completion, that's a little nice. Rather than us having to go in and hit refresh on the status all the time, you will get notified. That's available for both free and paid, multiple time selections. I've heard that the time selections on free and on the free version are a little not great. So curious if you guys have any feedback on that, that they just don't have as much flexibility on the time ranges in basic than they did with DSS. And then other things, so, ad hoc report limit per user per day. There is a limit for the basic version, no limit on charter, minimum or maximum number of active reports per user. Again, you guys may run your business slightly differently. This feels like a not crazy number. I think that's pretty fair. Usually, you're running max 20 to 30 reports a day, but it might be, and this is per user, so it should be okay. Other things I thought were interesting is that they are actually taking away bot access for basic and paid. This is something that they announced last year that they were open to, and it looks like they're still open to it on other sides of Retail Link, but they specifically either want you to use their data or use an API feed from any of their kind of approved channel partners. So just wanted to call that out for you guys if any of your partners are utilizing bots specifically for Luminate. So for other parts of Retail Link, it seems, again, the language is slightly vague. It seems like it's still okay for other parts of Retail Link, but for Luminate specifically, again, they're really trying to limit that to just API feeds. So yeah, just wanted to call that out for you guys. Again, all of this is available online, and you will get access to this recording, but just a little bit of a teaser of what to expect when you're evaluating between Luminate Basic and Luminate Charter. So just kind of a recap. So DSS features that will not be included in Luminate Basic. So basically this is what you're losing when you move to Luminate Basic. As we talked about, purchase orders, still going to be available in Nova. There's also going to be report sharing as well as bot access. And then new features in Luminate Basic that were not in DSS is you're going to have additional e-com sales as well as email notifications on report completion. So just an FYI there. So these are some of the features that are going to be in Luminate Charter that were not in DSS. I will not bore everyone by reading them, but you can see, as we kind of mentioned from the table, these are some of the things that they're going to start including, which is, again, it's up to you guys on whether or not this makes sense for your business and you feel the need to pay for it. So just in terms of what, from the feedback that we're getting from our supplier partners, what we think might be lost in the transition from DSS. So in general, a lot of supplier partners we're talking to are kind of concerned about the flexibility of report pulling. I think, as Peter mentioned, you guys have left some comments in the chat. Just the data sets are not the same. The time ranges are not the same. The ad hoc ability is not the same. So, what we're used to in terms of granularity. Again, our DSS was definitely far from perfect, but it did get us where we needed to go if you know where to find the data. But I think right now it's just the time that it's going to take to train people up to utilize Luminate. I know I mentioned some people kind of talk in the chat that, hey, now Luminate has fallen on my plate. And so it's having to, basically go from, hey, I have 20 years of knowing how to use DSS, and now I have to learn a whole new program. So as Peter mentioned, Walmart is doing a actually pretty decent job of getting Luminate training out there. I've heard that it's pretty good. So I would really recommend that you guys take advantage of that if you haven't been to those before. Peter, can you remind me, I know they were doing office hours for different apps. Do you know if they have kind of the equivalent for Luminate as well, or is it just training sessions?
I think it's training sessions, but and again, this might vary a bit from if it's a charter or basic thing. So it may be that there's more training sessions for charter, but I think that there's all kinds of classes and everything on there for everyone. But let me know if you guys are going in there, if you just have basic, if you don't have charter, how visible those are. There is a knowledge base with a lot of articles that is available in basic and charter. But in terms of there's like courses every Tuesday and Thursday, I think. in some pretty niche things there too. But
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. And you would, sorry, you would get that in the Academy section of Retail Link? Is that where the easiest way to get there, or?
yeah, it's not really. I think it's. I'm trying to think what it's called. It might be called resources, and there's two different drop downs on the top right and top left, and they're both kind of educational. But again, I think only one of those is for charter. So like charter will have its own kind of special education program that has classes and videos and stuff like that, and it'll track your progress through all of that. Um, but the knowledge base, I think, is the one that's in the left side drop down. I don't think it's called the knowledge base. I think it might be called resources or something like that. But it shouldn't be too hard to find because there's like 5 things you can click on. Eliminate.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. Okay, cool. So, we don't want to paint a picture of doom and gloom. Obviously, I know you guys can probably tell that I'm a DSS girl myself, but I think one of the exciting things about Luminate is, omnichannel.com is becoming a more prevalent part of doing business with Walmart. Obviously, they are still looking to compete with the other guys, Amazon. And so I think this is going to be really, really important in just understanding how you are doing in those particular channels so that you can hopefully try and kind of leverage that in your brick and mortar discussions with your buyer. So, Walmart is hoping that suppliers will be able to have more detailed insight into shopper behavior at the level of baskets, assortment choices, and categories. I thought this was pretty interesting. So they're kind of starting to lean into a little bit like the category and shopper insight side. So if any of you guys have utilized like Nielsen or IRI in the past, they're really trying to encroach on their territory a little bit, which is kind of, again, interesting. And suppliers, for example, you'll be able to pull customers with a charge, of course, but you can ask them like, hey, would you buy this, and what price point and what color resonates with you more? So you can have a little bit more kind of direct market feedback as you are figuring out, again, how do you build out your omni-channel and brick and mortar strategy? So just wanted to throw out there that there are a lot of cool things that are being promised right now. So I would say, again, it's going to be a big transition for a lot of people, I'm sure. But there are some pretty interesting things that are supposed to be coming down the pipe as well with Luminate. So definitely keep an eye for that. So a question that we get a lot is, is Luminate Charter worth the investment? So, a lot of the folks that we work with are just like, well, should I pay? And again, I never like giving kind of half answers, but it really depends on your business. I can say, generally speaking, the ones that we have seen kind of make the investment are going to be mid-market and enterprise sized, generally speaking. And it's because Luminate Charter kind of has a price floor. So there's a minimum that you have to pay, which for some of the smaller suppliers, it just doesn't really make sense. Again, it kind of reminds me of Madrid when that rolled out a few years ago. I think a couple of things for you guys to consider when you are looking at stuff is Walmart or Luminate Charter's costs are based off of retail sales, not your invoices or your ships to Walmart. I think that has surprised a lot of people just because it's basically, it's going to be a much larger number compared to if it were a percentage of your kind of net ships to Walmart. Again, some of the suppliers that we've talked to feel like the investment is essential and they think that it's worth it, especially if like Walmart is your number one customer, for example, that may make sense. But of course, others, we've heard are very frustrated that the cost is based off of retail sales. We've heard kind of in the range of 1 to 3% of retail sales. But again, kind of heard through the grapevine. So, this is not anything that Walmart has published or anything like that. But what we understand is basically they kind of tier the suppliers based on the size of your business to Walmart. And then from there, they determine a percentage at that point. I have heard that they're really trying to get folks on, unsurprisingly. And so they are willing to be a little bit more flexible around pricing. I've seen, and if anyone can corroborate this, please let me know, but I've seen chatter about them increasing the prices of Luminate in Q2 of this year. So I think they're trying to basically really, really encourage people to get on before we increase the prices. So just wanted to throw that out there for you guys that if you're kind of on the fence, again, we're not pushing you either way, but if you're kind of on the fence and if pricing is a big part of your decision, you may want to check in and see if that is true, that the pricing is supposed to increase next quarter. In terms of actually negotiating, I believe there is actually a contact page on the Luminate page. So if you again you go to their marketing page, and then you will be assigned like kind of like an account manager, salesperson sort of situation, and then they will basically be able to tell you, how much it costs and all of that good stuff. So yeah, so just wanted to again throw that out there, more seeds for thought, hopefully helpful as you guys are evaluating whether or not you want to make kind of the investment. So other things that we wanted to share. So Walmart is pretty good about releasing kind of program updates as they are building more and more things around Luminate. So we just wanted to share the most recent one that we've seen, February 7th. So they have basically every month-ish, they're announcing like all of the different parts of Luminate that they're adding on to, different data parts. So they're adding new additional data attributes, velocity metrics based on POS store count, item share, which is going to be very good for people that are going through distributors, as well as report sharing. Now, candidly speaking, I'm not sure if they're just meaning report sharing for Charter. So that is something to kind of be aware of and consider, is that not everything that they show necessarily means you're going to get it in basic. So I would kind of utilize this chart as your, Bible, so to speak, of understanding even when they're releasing new features, like what are you actually going to get access to? So I just wanted to call that out because I didn't want anyone to be like, oh, sweet, we're going to get all this stuff. That may not be true. So just wanted to give you all a heads up there. Okay. So wanted to share, for those of you guys who have not yet made the very scary trek into Luminate yet, we just wanted to give you guys, again, a very high level on just what it looks like, how you can pull your vendor scorecard, so their kind of report builder is where you actually will go in and create and add the columns and the filters that you like. Just showing you guys the basics. We do have other webinars. I feel like a broken record, but we do have other webinars where we go deeper into Luminate and actually show you how to do more things in detail. But I just wanted to, again, give you guys a preview if you guys have not clicked the Luminate button yet in Retail Link, so you know what to expect when you log in. But so how do I pull reports in Luminate? So as Peter mentioned, in the left nav dropdown, Luminate does have a support tab that will show you instructions for pulling reports. Some of the, again, reports that we're going to cover today are the vendor scorecard, as well as, again, just data builder, report builder basics. So when you go into Luminate, if any of you guys are following along at home or in your office, it should look a little something like this. So you're going to start out in the My Reports tab. And as you can see, shared with me, Charter only, as I mentioned. So again, even if they're announcing stuff like report sharing, that may not mean you. So just wanted to share that with you guys. But you're going to start out in the My Reports tab. And then from there, you're going to hit New Report. So again, I think a couple of you guys mentioned, like it is a little more user-friendly. It's a little more modern compared to, the 1998 Windows XP version of DSS. But again, right now it seems like a lot of show and not a lot of substance yet. But you're going to hit New Report. And basically, you're going to be able to choose from either from different data sets, or you can go into reports. So if you're trying to build kind of ad hoc reporting, you're going to use data sets. If you want kind of the more built out reporting, then you can go into the reports tab. And then from there, you would basically choose which report you want to utilize. So in this particular example, we're going to say the vendor scorecard. So this is very similar to the company scorecard. If you guys have pulled that in DSS before, it's going to have a very similar set of information. And basically all of these tiles you'll see here will kind of give you an explanation of what each of the data sets refer to. So vendor scorecard, just holistic view of vendor performance across the last 104 weeks. So after you've selected that, essentially from there, you're going to have filters that you're able to utilize. It's going to show you all of the different data that it will show. And then again, you can kind of filter it as you need to. So a couple of filter levels that are available today. They may add they may add more later on, but obviously you can filter kind of at the vendor level, brand level, category level, and item level, and even more granular details. And then after that, once you've kind of select the filter that you want to utilize, essentially the final touches from there are basically you'll want to name the report. So again, kind of similar with how they did it on DSS. You can add a description if that's helpful for you. Choose the format. So right now, the only formats available are XLSX and CSV. So I've not seen things like Access available. I don't know if anyone can share if that's, true. I know a lot of suppliers, especially when pulling large reports, need kind of that Access type of file format to be able to support just database information. But right now, Excel and CSV is what you've got. And then you can also determine the cadence. So do you want to run once, run continuously, and then schedule it out? Or do you want to schedule it for today or later on? So just wanted to throw that out there that this is kind of what that will look like. And essentially from there, you hit create, and then you'll be able to track that through. And then as a friendly reminder, compared to DSS, you will get an email notification of just like, hey, FYI, this report is done, as opposed to before when you have to basically stay on DSS and refresh continuously to see whether it's done. So again, I would agree. I think it's a little bit more user-friendly, a little bit more, I would say, intuitive. But again, for a lot of folks, it's going to come down to the data availability and not just user-friendliness, although this is much nicer. Are there any differences between the vendor scorecard in Luminate and DSS? From what we have seen, and again, but guys, please feel free to chime in if you guys are seeing something different on your end. We're all learning together. But what we've seen is that for the most part, these reports are the same. The only kind of big notable difference is the addition of the POS quantity data in Luminate. And then again, for Walmart, Luminate is supposed to be kind of the source of truth now. So it's supposed to have more accurate data compared to, the scorecard in DSS, especially on the .com side. So curious to see if that has been the experience and kind of the same thing for you guys. And if so, just how, is this a fair kind of assessment of the comparison between the two? So a couple of kind of pro tips for you guys, and just in terms of getting the most out of the scorecard, as well as, other reports. And these are just what we would consider tips and tricks. Obviously, as you guys are running your own reports, do what makes the most sense for your business. But we would say, it's just making sure that you are, utilizing the right data points and the right time ranges, and trying. So with DSS, it's very common to just kind of be like, oh, we're just going to, pull it for all items for all time frames. I would say try to be a little bit more focused with Luminate. That tends to help bring slightly more accurate data and just more usable data. So, looking at your time ranges, your warehouse metrics, your store metrics, your omni-channel performance, so on and so forth. Okay, so in the interest of time, I'm going to zip through this part a little bit. Again, there are other webinars out there and articles that you guys can utilize. Peter was just telling me we're actually working on a full ebook on how to utilize Walmart Luminate, which is really exciting. So hopefully, we're skimming the surface today, but once that ebook drops, you guys will be able to get even more information from SupplyPike. But essentially now I'm going to kind of transition over to talking about the report builder. So remember, the scorecard is a little bit more kind of a template that you're utilizing. Report builders, so you can be a little bit more flexible with the type of data that you want to pull. But essentially, in the top nav, there's a drop-down button. You want to utilize report builder. Again, your mileage may vary a little depending on if you have basic or charter. So just wanted to call that out for you guys. Report builder should be available for everybody, but just wanted to share you guys. And then I mentioned, when you have the two tabs at the top, data set versus reports, you're going to start with the data set. So again, won't bore you guys by reading everything, but you can see like, hey, you can pull your store sales and inventory. And again, it's going to give you your information on what each data set should include. So in this particular example, we are going to start with the store sales and inventory just to show you guys what that looks like. And basically, it's very similar to kind of that store reporting on the DSS. When you go into DSS and like the very first folder. So it's essential in-store performance data sets, OPD, online pickup and delivery, returns, markup, markdown. And as I mentioned, kind of the rough DSS equivalent is the company summary report or the store detail report. One other thing that I wanted to call out for you guys is, so we also have an article, a cheat sheet around the equivalence from DSS to Luminate. So I would recommend checking that one out if you haven't already, and Peter may be able to throw that in the chat. But basically, as Peter mentioned, I really like what he said, translating, like, hey, if it was called this in DSS, what is it called in Luminate? Because we see a lot of times when people are like, they don't have this data set anymore. And actually they do, they just renamed it because of course they did. So I would check out that cheat sheet and it'll help you kind of translate like, hey, in the past with DSS, I was always pulling these, 20 columns. Let me go find the equivalent in Luminate to make sure that I'm building very similar reports, basically. Yeah, so from there, you'll be able to select, again, the columns that you need, and you can build a report from scratch. You can also do a quick report. So I thought this was kind of interesting of a concept. So you may go, hey, build a report to view the inventory pipeline with sales and in stock for my items. You click that, it'll kind of auto-populate some of the columns that are traditionally used to answer that particular business question. But again, you can build a report from scratch, and it is kind of similar-ish to the DSS flow where you're picking your columns and your time frames and your items, and then you get an output from there. Okay, so wanted to kind of throw one, I think this might be the last question in the chat for you guys. So just curious again, if you guys are comfortable with sharing, what have been the biggest challenges for you and your business adapting to the new platform? I know we asked, have you guys been utilizing it? And I guess now the question is, now that you have to, do you feel prepared for it? And also, I think something that would be helpful even for us on the supplier wiki side is if there's anything that you guys would like to see that maybe you're not getting from Walmart resources today, definitely let us know. And you guys know we're happy to write articles and do more webinars to support on that. So I'm curious to see if you guys have any feedback there. But I think that's all the content I have, Peter. Any questions or anything that we can help?
Yeah, we didn't. All of our questions were in the chat, so there was a really good, conversation going on there. But I will call out some of them just in case not everyone saw them. And then I wanted to mention also that we are going to be prioritizing a lot of Luminate content in the months to come. So we're going to do a Luminate recipes webinar in May. Right now, we've got that penciled in for May 21. It'll either be me or Stacy or both of us on that one as well. So go ahead and look out for that. I'm also working on a Luminate ebook right now, which will be covering a little bit more detail on what charter looks like and what some of the kind of benefits are there. And then we'll probably have a charter webinar coming out soon as well. So the best way to kind of make sure that you don't miss those is by signing up for the Supplier Wiki newsletter, which I highly recommend doing if you haven't already, and just kind of frequenting our website. But scanning those emails whenever they come in, if you're signed up for the newsletter already, I would recommend as well. We had one question here about the Luminate training sessions, that they are in Luminate and not in Retail Link, and that is correct. And so I did some poking around just during the webinar to try to find those. And so I think it's the resources tab and then learn. And this might be what you actually see might change from supplier to supplier. But that's where a lot of the courses are. That's where the they'll have bi-weekly training sessions in there too for different things as well. So you should be able to find somewhere in there, there should be a video recording of the best of the live basic trainings that they've done, but there will probably be more live basic trainings um, uh, from week to week there as well. So there's that. That's what I do. Resources and then learn. And then there's also a knowledge base in resources, and that's the articles. So all of those are good to read. Some of them I found to be not super helpful, not detailed enough in explaining what the reports are for, how they're different from DSS. Of course, all of that will be probably really frustrating for you guys as it's been for me. And learning how to translate those reports from DSS to Luminate should be pretty challenging as well. But we got one last question coming in here from Olive. We've been asked to provide an order script to our buying team for review. Is this something that I can pull in Luminate? Stacy, I don't know if you have an answer to that question.
Yeah. So it sounds to me kind of like probably like a manual order. So for this particular, so yes and no. So you can utilize Luminate to pull like the data that you need. Obviously, you will want to pull different things depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the script. If it's like an in-stock issue and you're trying to push, product to a specific stores, then you'll be able to get that store and inventory and in-stock level information out of Luminate. But to actually write the script itself, you're going to utilize the Nova app in Retail Link. So if you guys have ever, had to write, an SSO before, that is where that lives now, is in the Nova application. You should have access to that. If not, so most suppliers are going to have what they call read-only access to Nova in the beginning. If you need to actually submit a script or do a PO line edit or maintenance of any sort, you're going to need write access to Nova. Your Retail Link admin should be able to grant your user ID access to that. If you are the Retail Link admin and you don't have write access, you can talk to your replenishment manager. They should be able to grant you access. And if I'm not mistaken, if you don't have Nova at all, your RM actually has to grant your entire vendor number access to start. So make sure you have that application, and then you would use that to basically submit a script. And then from there, again, broken record, but we do actually have a couple of Nova webinars where we show you how to write a script. I think it's like Navigating Nova. So I would check those out. And then obviously, if we can help, let us know.
Yeah, I'll pull the 101 up here real quick and send it in the chat
Sure.
before we go on to. And then I think that we had one other just kind of comment related to that from Jackie, who was saying the RM also has to add edit access, which I was not aware of. So that's good to know too if you're trying to get that access. Another kind of sort of unrelated shout out is just that Supplier One also has a lot of, if not all of Nova's capabilities. So I'm not sure if they have that, if that script writing capability is something that you guys might be doing just through Supplier One now instead, or something like that. So if that's what you've been hearing, that might be kind of relevant for that process too.
I would say, yeah, if you guys haven't checked out Supplier One, it actually looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
Which I know we all like to, make fun of Retail Link a little bit. Like I said, it's a love-hate relationship, but Supplier One actually looks pretty good. So I would check that out if you guys haven't yet. Okay.
Okay. We've been talking about our resources all day long, so we don't need to add anything
Yeah.
to that. But
Yes.
go to Supplier Wiki and sign up for our newsletter if you like this. And we've got a lot more stuff on different levels of detail, granularity on any of these subjects. And if there is a subject that you would really like for us to dive deep into, let us know too, because that's really helpful. And you can let us know by emailing us, which is the next slide. We've got our emails up there. I love getting feedback from people about these webinars, and I especially love hearing from people what your pain points are and what the kind of areas of difficulty are, because it's my job. Really, I get 40 hours a week to just kind of go find the answers to these questions. So please let us know. Or if you have any kind of lingering questions, you think you might have a lingering question later on, let us be the educational kind of wing of what you're trying to do, and let us do that research for you. So yeah, that's that. But I think now we're going to transition to the product preview, so that we can get that in before the top of the hour for those of you who are interested in that. If you're not, thanks for coming, and we look forward to seeing you next time. But yeah, Stacy's just going to walk through a little bit about what it is that we do. It's of course tangentially related, but not explicitly related to Luminate. So take it away.
Absolutely. Thanks, Peter. And yes, as Peter mentioned, we definitely don't want you guys to feel like, oh, now I got to go sit through something with you guys. So we try to keep it really short and simple, but we always like to just show people, just because a lot of times they'll be like, why do you guys think you can, you've got credibility to talk about these sorts of things. So we always like to show you kind of what we do, on the other side of the house. And as Peter mentioned, if you guys are curious, or anyone at your team that would be curious to learn more, we're always here to talk. If not, we want to make sure that you guys feel like you walked away with good education. So as Peter mentioned, kind of we are really, really big on the rev loss side. So usually this is going to encompass any part of deduction. So, hey, Walmart ordered 100 cases from you, you shipped them 100 cases, and now they're saying you didn't pay me, we didn't receive everything, so we're not going to pay you in full. And now you have been short paid, and you have to figure out, like, is that true? Did we really not ship everything? And if not, and we really did ship in full, then hey, Walmart, you need to pay us back for this. So we automate the deduction and compliance aspect of doing business with Walmart, Amazon, Target, and Kroger completely. So essentially, kind of how what we do is we're able to pull in data directly from Retail Link, where we'll show you, hey, these are how many deductions you've received over the last 2 years. This is what you have sent over to Walmart to research. This is what they've approved or canceled, denied. This is what you've been won back. This is what has been paid, etc. I think what makes this particular platform really, really powerful is we go kind of the step beyond that. So, hey, knowing, as G.I. Joe says, is half the battle. But, it's not enough to just go, oh no, we lost money and we got it back. We think it's really powerful, and hopefully you guys can see from our education arm, to understand why it happened. Because if not, you're just running on the hamster wheel. You're just getting a new deduction, fighting it, getting a new deduction, fighting it. For us, we really try and stress the importance of understanding where you're losing money, so that you can implement strategies in the future to go, hey, oh my gosh, we are getting killed with code 25s, which is, basically Walmart is saying they did not receive the entire order. And we know that that's not true. Is it an invoice timing issue? Is it a packaging issue? Is it a palletization issue? And so we will, kind of call these types of insights out for you at a high level, and even on a deduction by deduction level. So you can get into every single detail of, hey, I got this shortage related code. What happened? We'll even do validity judgments for you, because we're able to tie into things like your ASN data, inventory receipt report. So we're tying into about 12 different apps in Retail Link to stitch this picture together. So you go, hey, I received this particular claim. Is it valid? Is it not? What items am I getting hit with for how much? And should I go fight this particular claim? So kind of another cool thing is that we'll automatically collate all of the right documentation. So let's say you go, you know what, this is not right. I for sure shipped this in full. Here's all this data. Obviously, this is a demo account, but here's all this data showing that I did ship it in full. I'm ready to go ahead and dispute this. We have automatically pulled your PO, your invoice, your claim, and we actually have integrations with over 100 different carriers and 3PLs to pull even bills of lading, and your proofs of delivery, and attach it to the right one, so you're not having to go find them. And then essentially all you have to do is, when you see you're ready to dispute, it means, we've built a lot of business logic into the app. So we know, hey, for code 24, you need XYZ type of information to dispute it. We've already included. Now you have to do is see that ready to dispute button and hit submit dispute. So it's a highly, highly efficient way to go after deductions, while also getting insights and visibility. We also have like root causes. So you can even understand why you received a deduction. Was it an ASN issue? Was it overages and shortages on the same PO? Were you giving an allowance incorrectly? We will figure all this out for you programmatically, so you're not having to do that. which is pretty cool. Other things that are nice is we also have the ability to kind of bulk dispute, or even, do auto disputing. So you can immediately come in and just say, turn all auto disputing on. I don't even want to look at this. And we'll handle all of that for you guys. And then last thing I'll show, and then, kind of end it there is, as I mentioned, in addition to deductions, we also support overages, OTIF, SQEP, and post audits. So, again, great to know, hey, this is really cool to know that I received XYZ fines over a certain period of time. But we will, again, stitch together a lot of data sources to get you kind of beyond that first level of information. So let's pretend you're a prepaid supplier. Again, this is all dummy data, but let's pretend you're a prepaid supplier. You're getting everything to your carriers on time. We will show you on a month-to-month basis which are your kind of problem children on like, hey, what is going on? ABF, you cost me $6,000 last month. And that's not good. And I need to understand, I gave you everything on time. What happened there? You'll get even things like performance scorecards by carrier. So we'll show you like the fines attributed to these carriers over time. So you can say, hey, okay, with ABF, it was a blip. Usually they're really, really good. But hey, for this particular carrier, they're causing me $10,000 worth of fines every month. Maybe I don't want to work with them anymore. So we'll show you that level of detail by carrier, by your ship points, if you're shipping out of multiple 3PLs, department, destination items. So we will give you so much data, you don't know what to do with it. But it's really cool. And I think it's a really, really different way to look at data of rather than just trying to tread water with rev loss, which a lot of suppliers do, of just like, oh, it's the cost of doing business with Walmart and we'll go after the big dollars. It's, hey, how do we make sure that we plug every hole in the leaky bucket so that you guys are getting every dollar that you should get from Walmart and the other retailers? But yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell. Kind of last parting thought that I will share with you guys. We do offer a free trial. So I always, obviously I'm a little biased. I work at Supply Pike, but I always recommend it because we'll actually pull your data into the application and show you that we will give you all of these insights for free. And essentially, you kind of make a decision at that point where you go, hey, maybe we're not doing as well as we thought. Maybe we should explore more with Supply Pike, or you may go, you know what, we're on top of things. I'm not really worried about it. And then that's fine there too. So I always recommend it. It takes about 5 minutes on y'all's end to set it up. And again, you get all of this information for free. So just wanted to throw that out there. If you're curious, I think, Peter, we usually send follow-up emails and you guys can respond to any of those and we'll be happy to get you set up.
Yep. Thanks for all that, Stacy. I think that was the best demo I've ever heard. It was fast. It was to the point. You got all the like new features in there too. That was great.
I love it. Hopefully helpful to you guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.